Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. Thanks for tuning in this morning. Financial Issues is a ministry that helps to educate people about financial issues from a biblical worldview. So we talk a lot about defunding darkness, which is our biblically responsible investment strategy, where we help you screen out companies who are using shareholder money to fund ungodly agendas like abortion, pornography, the LGBTQ agenda, human rights violations, and so much more. We also encourage you to be a joyful and generous giver. We call that funding the light. Well, on today's show, we are going to take a moment to remember our founder, Dan Celia, who went home to be with the Lord just 3 years ago. We'll also get to some of your questions that you've been sending into the ministry and get encouragement from the scriptures in 1 Corinthians 15:58. And I just want to start with that encouragement from the scriptures. 1 Corinthians 15:58 says, "Beloved, therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord." Well, I chose this verse because it was Dan's life verse, and boy, did he live it out. Yesterday, March the 30th, marked 3 years since the anniversary of Dan's homegoing. Not only was Dan Celia a visionary in the world of biblically responsible investing, but he was also a steadfast servant of the Lord, whose passion for equipping believers to be faithful stewards of God's resources continues to guide this ministry today. Through his years on the airwaves, he guided countless individuals in making wise financial decisions that aligned with biblical principles. But beyond financial wisdom, Dan's ultimate focus was on advancing the gospel. He knew that our treasure is in Christ alone. So 3 years after Dan's passing, we celebrate his life and legacies, not as those who grieve without hope, but for those who rejoice in the certainty of the gospel. So we hope that you will continue this journey with us, honoring the Lord through faithful stewardship, standing firm on biblical truth, and looking forward to a day when we too will hear those precious words that Dan heard. Well done, good and faithful servant. In addition to all of that, Dan was a friend. When my heart was convicted for biblically responsible investing, upon hearing Dan on the radio some 12 years ago, I ended up getting the opportunity to meet him and befriend him. I believe that that was a divine appointment. Dan helped me to learn the FISM strategy and to apply that strategy to my private practice because my heart was convicted. I wanted to clean up the portfolios, not only that I owned, but that I helped other people manage. Dan walked with me and he prayed with me through some roadblocks that came up as I made that decision to honor God and follow the biblically responsible investment path. When the Lord brought me to the other side, which was sort of a long journey and involved leaving the company that I was with, starting over with another company that was like-minded, Dan was there. Though it wasn't near long enough for me, I treasured his friendship and the way that he mentored me. He was a very wise man. He loved the Lord and he stewarded his gifts, talents, and financial resources in a very excellent way. Dan's labor was not in vain. He laid the foundation for a financial ministry, this ministry, that continues today, 3 years after he went home to be with the Lord. So we will continue that legacy, the legacy that I call defunding darkness and funding the light. Dan was very passionate about not participating in the garbage that corporate America was funding. More so, he was steadfast and unmovable when it came to the work of funding the kingdom of God on earth. He was responsible for raising millions of dollars for ministries like Preborn and the American Family Association. Dan loved his partners, and one of his favorite things to do was to interact with them. So, in honor of Dan, let's do what he loved to do and answer some questions that some of the partners have sent in. Sam?
Amen to that, Shanna. So we begin today with Kim, where she says, where can I find an expert to help me set up a donor-advised fund?
All right. Well, I can tell you that, in private practice, that's one of the things that we do a lot of. So if you want to email Pat and get the contact information for our firm, we can maybe answer some questions about that. However, there are several different platforms that you can choose that are out there, and I think she wants to know what questions to ask when she's setting up a donor advised fund. So you could try a company called Wren or Waterstone. Those are the two that we use, that we work with. I know there are some others out there. I don't know much about them, but if you want to explore, some of the questions that you need to ask is, how do they work? So the way that a donor advised fund works is an account that you can set up. You can gift cash or securities. That's the most common ways that we have experience with, to that account. So a lot of times people will do this when they have appreciated securities. Maybe let's say that you're hearing about biblically responsible investing for the first time, and maybe you have a stock like Apple or Microsoft that you've owned for a long time. It's made you a lot of money, but now you're disappointed to learn that they are funding garbage. So, and you want to get rid of them. Well, one way of doing that in a tax efficient way, if you sell them outright, you may have to pay capital gains tax. So, let's say that you have some charitable intent, and that's where it needs to start, because once you open a donor advised fund and gift money into it, you can't get it back out for your own personal use. So it has to be money that you are permanently ready to commit to the use of kingdom work. So you'll want to ask, since it's a donor advised fund, so you contribute money, the custodian then gets advice or request from the donor, which is you, so you don't own it anymore. The custodian, the trust company does, and you can make requests for grants to be distributed to organizations of your choice. A lot of times, those companies will make the distribution as long as they meet the requirement of being a nonprofit organization. Sometimes custodians have agendas of their own, and they can refuse to make the grant that the donor requests if it happens to be what they consider a hate organization. There are organizations out there that have been labeled as the left, as hate groups, and some of these brokerages that offer donor advised funds will refuse to make those. So you want to ask them, do they have any restrictions on where they will send money or where they will make grants? You also want to ask them about the fees that they charge, the fees to set up the account, the ongoing maintenance fees. You'll want to ask them about tax reporting. You'll want to ask them about how you go about making those requests for grants or distributions. A lot of the companies that we work with will actually take those requests online, or they have a phone number that you can call to make those. So those are some of the questions. You'll also want to ask, I think you will be very interested to know how the money will be managed. So once you make the gift into the account, that account is going to be managed in a certain way. Of course, the ones that we work with in private practice allow us to continue to manage the funds that are in the donor advised fund, and we do so with the same biblically responsible investment strategy that we use for other money. So if you're not allowed to make the investment decisions or have an advisor that does so for you, you'll want to ask how that money is managed, because I think that would be important as well.
Okay, very quickly, she has a bonus question there. Okay. She says, what's the best way to vet a nonprofit before making a donation? A charity navigator, BB Wise Giving, something like that, Shanna?
I'm not familiar with those sources. If you trust them, then I guess that would be a good way. I think the best way to do it is to take it to the Lord in prayer. So, I believe that the bulk of our giving, maybe our tithe, should go to our local church that we are a member of. So that's where the largest part of my giving goes, is to my local church. And then above and beyond that are the things that God lays on my heart. So, a lot of times if I'm approached by another ministry, I don't know. I have so many that I believe that God is leading me to give to that I just wait for the Lord's leading and guidance on that. But, you could certainly talk to the ministry. If they file a tax filing, you could take a look at how their ministry is set up and the filings that they make to see how much is spent towards administration, how much actually goes to the work that they are doing. But I would also consider just asking them. All right, folks, we've got to take a break here, but stick around. We've got more financial issues to come.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Kids need the hope of Jesus. There's so much loneliness, brokenness, isolation, and bullying. Now, you and I, we have the opportunity to do exactly what Jesus said, to go and make disciples right where they are, right inside their public school. The Lord has been building the impact of Crossroads Kids Club, and we ask for your help to pursue a vision of greater national expansion.
To join us, visit reachourschools.com. That's reachourschools.com.
Through the ministry of Preborn, the Financial Issues family has saved tens of thousands of lives of babies. What an amazing job that God has done through you, the Financial Issues family. Would you join us in saving the lives of babies? What an amazing reunion we will have in glory, meeting all the people that we have saved. Please go to preborn.org, that is preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn banner.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shanna are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Thanks for tuning in today. So we are paying tribute to our founder, Dan Celia's memory today, and we're going to just continue doing one of his favorite things, which is answering questions from the partners. What do you got, Sam?
Well, right now we have Greg, who says, Shanna, I've been a partner for 4 years now. I have a small portfolio of $32,000. Recently, I've seen many sell alerts for companies that are showing weak fundamentals as opposed to BRI concerns. Are these moves based on political policy creating weak fundamentals, or just warranted because the fundamentals for future investment are weak? Should we sell a position just to get back in when the politics change? I appreciate you and FISM.
Yeah, so that's sort of a loaded question. It could be both. So we take a micro and a macro approach whenever we're coming up with our our investment recommendations, meaning which sectors we're going to invest in, which companies that we're going to invest in. So, we pay attention to the things that are happening around us, to the news that's going on, and certainly politics is a big part of that. I spent the first half of my career listening to economists and, different researchers say that politics doesn't really influence investments in a big way. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. I always thought that was a little off. And, when I started listening to Dan Celia, I really knew that it was off, because Dan talked a lot about politics. That was when he was on the show, on the air for 3 hours a day. He talked about everything under the sun, investments, politics, and all kind of things. But so that, yes, politics does play a part on what is happening in the economy, because tax policy certainly plays a part in how much spendable income consumers have. That can impact demand in a way. Politics can also have a big impact on energy policy. We saw under a Biden administration, one of the first things he did, if not the first thing that he did, was to shut down the Keystone pipeline. Now, under the Trump administration, we're seeing a policy coming into play of drill, baby, drill. So that changes things in a business environment. The way that corporate taxes and corporate regulations are handled by an administration is going to play a part. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, it was a little bit harder to distinguish between a Republican and a Democrat. There were marked differences, but now they're polar opposites. And there's parties, there's parts of the party that are even more extreme and much different. So, all of that contributes to a macro environment that we have to take into consideration. But we also look at the individual companies, because we have a long-term strategy. We want you to go into purchasing a stock not as a transaction that you could reverse in, a day or a week or a year. We want you to go into buying stock as becoming an owner of a company. So, we want you to know a little bit about what the company does. You can read that in the description. If you're going to be really hands-on with it, I think it would be a good idea to follow the news on the companies that you own, to maybe listen to the quarterly or annual shareholder conference calls that the company puts on. That's a really great way to develop an ownership mentality for stocks. So those are the things that we look at. So it could be because of both. It could be because a company is having trouble executing their business plan. Maybe things have happened and they laid out a plan, they're not following the plan. It could be things that have gone really wrong, like they've done some dishonest things. Those could be reasons that we sell. Certainly, if it's a biblically responsible reason, then we do issue a sell. So, like I said, we go into it thinking that we're going to own the company for the long term, that we're going to stick with it through just the normal business cycle ups and downs. But we're prepared. We don't get emotionally involved with the companies that we own. It's not a marriage. It's not till death do you part. So we're looking for companies to be good stewards of the resources that they manage, because we're choosing to invest God's money in those companies. So if those things change, then we can issue, and we do issue sell alerts.
It's like in therapy. Sometimes you need to learn emotional detachment. So
That's right.
Meanwhile, Shannon,
but not in a marriage.
Yeah, exactly. But with your stocks, that's great.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Chris here, he's asking, I'm in the 45 to 55 model. All the mutual funds I have are iShares through Empower. Considering they are iShares, do I need to wait 3 years? Mentioned earlier as a general rule with mutual funds to sell for rebalancing the terms. He says that MF72 has appreciated to about 1% higher than his goal. He also lists several other funds that he also owns, all in iShares.
Okay, so a couple of things there. So mutual funds are long-term investments, and you should not be trading them. So when you buy a mutual fund, you are hiring a team of managers to make the day-to-day decisions on what happens in that fund based on the objectives that are set forward in the prospectus. So if the prospectus tells you that 90% of the money in the fund has to be invested, and it can only be invested in large cap companies that are growth oriented and domiciled in the U.S. The managers have to follow those rules, but within those parameters, they get to pick and choose which company the fund owns. So there's not really a reason for you to have to sell a mutual fund suddenly. And if you are trading mutual funds, you're going to hinder the fund manager and potentially hurt the other shareholders, because when you add money in, let's say that the money has to be invested, the fund manager is going to have to deploy that money. On the flip side, if you request your money back out, they have to sell some things. So, they may not have anything that they want to sell at that time, but they'll have to sell the things to get the money for the redemptions. So if you're rebalancing your mutual funds once or twice a year at most is the way to do it, and you just rebalance according to those asset allocation models. Because you're in the iShares, you're not paying upfront sales charges, and you could exchange between the different funds. You can also do that with an A share. So it's not necessarily about the share class being the reason that we don't want you to trade the mutual funds. It's about the long-term nature of the mutual funds. To his point about one of his positions being 1% higher than the goal for a mutual fund, that's not a big deal at all. So that's really just considered drift. And what I mean by that is that when you own a mutual fund, the price is going to fluctuate. It's going to go up and down on a sometimes daily basis. So being 1% more than the target that you have is really just considered drift. So don't let that be a trigger for you to rebalance it. Stay disciplined with your rebalances once or twice a year. And then with the other, he gives a list of mostly fixed income funds and ETFs that he owns, and they are in iShares. I would just say to that to go back to, there's two of them that I can see, the FI 57 and 42, which has a different call number now. I think it's FX instead of FI. But those had a sell alert back in June of 2024. So you can still go to the alerts section of our website, go back to June of 2024, read through that, and you can see which ones had the sell alert.
All right, very good. We move on now to Carol, who is 68 years old. She currently owns CS70 and would like to add to it to achieve a 1% total of the allocation. She asks, would now be a good time for us to do this? We are up about $10 a share. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Well, it's great to be up. Typically, when you think about adding to a position, it's because the position has gone down in value. But I can see where Carol's going with this, that she wants to have at least 1% of her portfolio in that stock. And really, if you have anything less than 1% in your allocated toward that in your portfolio, it's not really a meaningful position. A 1% position is not going to contribute a whole lot either to the gain or loss of a whole entire portfolio. So, we suggest that as a starting place, you have at least 1%. But for this particular company, I would consider waiting. It does look like the price has been falling. What I would say to Carol is to consider the other stocks that are on the buy list in that sector, unless you already have too many in that sector. So if that's the case, if you already have enough companies in that sector, or maybe you don't like any of the ones that are on the buy list, I think it would be okay to add to that. But I would wait until the price sort of levels out.
All right, very good. We have about 2 minutes left. You want to sneak in Austin, or do you want to?
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay. Austin says, Shanna, can you please discuss what, if any, efforts are taken by FISM analysts to consider shadow inventory for REITs and other real estate companies prior to their buy list recommendation? It seems like this may be an important consideration as deportations continue and as mass deportations are anticipated. Thanks for all that you and the team do. Austin is age 29.
Great to see a youngster on there. And Austin has a lot of questions, so we're glad that he's following along. So shadow inventory doesn't generally apply to the REITs that we own. So, what you'll see on our list is shadow inventory primarily applies to residential. We don't really have anything residential on our list. It can apply to certain other industries too, but it could apply to commercial properties in some categories, but we've typically stayed clear of recommending of having any REITs on our buy list that could be negatively impacted by that shadow inventory. So, when we're looking at the buy list, we're looking at specific individual companies now, not necessarily the macro part of it, but we do look at the business that they're in, we look at the risk, we look at the income. It's because REITs are income investments. We are very interested in how steady and consistent that income can be. Well, folks, if you're listening on an outlet that only carries a short version of the show, we wish you a farewell today. But we hope that you'll stick around because we've got more financial issues to come. You can listen to the full show by getting our phone app. You can download that on your app store. I'm your host, Shanna Burke. Stay tuned. We've got more financial issues right after this.
Where's Mima? We found out Shepard's diagnosis when I was about 17 weeks pregnant. We learned that he was going to need a series of surgeries after he was born in order to give him what they considered a normal life. And we weren't sure how this worked.
Yeah, very emotional, very, very broken. And as my wife just said, not sure how this worked. And called Samaritan, and they said, you just go have that baby. You leave the rest to us.
And just to hear the confidence on the other end of the phone of this is not something that you need to be concerned about at all. You focus on the health of your family, the health of your baby, and we will walk with you every step of the way.
Be there for you.
I know.
My wife and I, we moved into this neighborhood. We had some experience with Crossroads Kids Club. We had served at another club. We kind of thought to ourselves, like, it would be really, really cool for us to actually bring in a club that was able to share the love of Jesus with kids directly into the school. And so we started our Crossroads at Hilltop.
Crossroads is amazing. You can learn all kinds of things about God. That He loves all of us. He died on the cross to pay for our sins. That He will help me in every way.
There is just such tremendous opportunity to reach kids in some of these areas that just aren't being reached.
Sometimes I pray every night.
When I feel alone sometimes, God is right there sitting next to me.
I can rely on Him no matter what happens.
To learn more about Crossroads Kids Club and how you can get involved, visit reachOurschools.com.
Financial Issues, everyone. It's great to be here with you live. Sam, I'm back. I've missed you guys. It's good to be back with you all.
It's truly amazing.
Yeah.
You're here.
It's crazy. I was not fired. I'm back here, but no, thank you all so much for the prayers and the love for Megan. And for
I saw the comments that said you were raptured, maybe.
That's
just you, the only person.
Just me. Yeah, that'd be a weird rapture, folks. No, good to be back with you all. Hey, thank you so much for your prayers for me and my family. Little Knox Kingsley Udinsky was born 2 weeks ago, and we're just loving life. We're having so much fun with him. So I thank you all so much for those prayers once again. And thank you especially to Sam and the team for filling in while I was gone. Sam, it's great to be back, man. I missed you guys. But
it was fun. It was fun.
Absolutely. So, of course, as you heard Shannon mention those last couple segments there, today's a day for us to honor the legacy and memory of our founder, Dan Celia, a great friend to me and Sam, a mentor to us, and so many of us as well, as you heard Shanna say there. So I thought, Sam, it'd be good for us to just open our portion of the show here, doing a little bit of that there. So, Sam, I guess just to open up to you, what did Dan mean to you? I know he meant a lot of things to me, for sure.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for Dan Celia. He taught me so many different things. I mean, honestly, he taught me that it's okay to try something and to let it fail. That's okay. That's part of the learning experience. And he was so gracious to us, and I know you and everyone here at the ministry, that he was excited if we had a new idea and to put it into action. And he didn't really care if it worked out or not. I mean, of course, he wanted it to work out in the end, but he was just excited to see us try, fall down, and get back up again. I'm sure if you watch Dan over the years, you know he has a very tenacious spirit. So he tried to impart that on us, and I think he did a little bit.
Yeah, that's well said, man. It reminded me, being a father now of two boys, Dan was a spiritual father to so many of us. Sam, I know he was for you, for me as well. And part of being a good father is giving your sons the chance to do things and the chance to fail, and letting them know that you're there for them, but also giving them the discipline that they need, giving them the leadership that they need. And boy, Dan did that for us, man. He really did. And I think one word to describe how Dan was for us and the people who worked under him was he stewarded us well. He was a good steward of us. He enabled us to be able to do the very best that we could for the glory of God. He corrected us when we needed it. And it was just so good. And it was a joy and an honor to get to work under him. Absolutely. And to hopefully try to follow that example as well.
Yeah. Amen, Seth. Amen.
For sure. Sam, I know we have a good old-fashioned Dan rant to play.
Love this
I'd
one.
love to get to that. Yeah, let's do that.
All right, here it is.
When I'm talking about something, do you understand that first and foremost, the thing that is most important to me is, are they honoring God? This is money that God has entrusted to me to do the right thing with. So I am going to say, hey, God, thank you for this wonderful abundance that you've given me. But by the way, if you don't mind, it won't hurt. I'm going to smack you across the face and do whatever I want with it. So feel free not to ever bless me again. Is that what I should do? I'm not doing it for his blessing. I'm doing it because I don't want to grieve his heart. I don't want him to, I don't want to stand before him and say, my word, I know you hated abortion as much as my heart does. So why were you investing in it? I'm not going there. I got enough things to go to places I don't want to go when I stand before the Lord. But I don't want to go there, and I'm never going to go there. So you need to understand that. So if you want to question me, then question me based on the same type conviction that I have. If you don't have the same convictions I have, then put all your money in Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Intel, put all your money into Apple, all your money into, all of Netflix, all of those FANG stuff. Put all your money in there. You'll probably do really well. Here's the problem, though. You made the mistake at some point in time to listen to this program. Now you're standing before the Lord and you can't even plead ignorance. Not that I think that does much good, but you can't even plead ignorance. You can't say, I had no idea, Lord. I had no idea I was doing that. You can't plead ignorance anymore. What are you going to do now? I mean, just keep on doing it, because making 2% more a year is far more valuable than your worship of the Lord.
Ooh, doggy, Seth. What do you think of that?
Absolutely. I love that. I think another word I'd use to describe Dan is one of conviction and boldness. He never minced words. That was one of the things that I loved about working under him, is I never had to guess what he thought about me at any given time. He would tell you. He would tell you like it was, and it was a joy to work under someone like that. Folks, I can't emphasize what Dan said enough there. If your heart is not convicted and sold out to being biblically responsible in investing, I'm not really sure why you're listening to this show. I'm not really sure why you're a partner with us. That is the foundation of who we are. You have got to, first and foremost, want to honor God with the money that he's given you. You have to want that. It has to be a desire within you. And we believe, we really do, this is the most important thing about your investing. It's the most important thing about your money. And ultimately, it's the most important thing about your life, is being a good steward of everything that God has given you. First, the gospel, also your family. We believe your church is included in that. We believe everything that God has put under your care, your job, and of course, your money as well. It's to be stewarded well. It's to be stewarded for his glory. And our hope and prayer here at the ministry is that what we put forth here, the things that we provide for you, can help you to do that. And if that's the case, I believe we've been greatly successful. I know Dan sure was. And so we're trying to do the same thing here, Sam. Definitely. So, well, folks, I was joking with Sam about this earlier before the show. I go away for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden we have a new website, and we completely just blow the Crossroads Kids Club numbers out of the water. It's absolutely amazing.
They were waiting for you to leave. They said, I'm not going to give money while that Seth guy's on the air, and you left, and they said, thank goodness, now I can give my money.
Yeah, just crazy stuff. So I come back, and it's like whole new stuff here. But wonderful job to all of you at the Crossroads Kids Club campaign. I am so proud of each of you, and it was an honor to be a part of it. Let me say a couple things about the website too as well, folks. So many of you know we recently launched our new website. Very excited about this website. We hope that you'll check it out. If you're watching the show right now on financialissues.org/live, you are already on the new website, and you're seeing all the different new features and stuff. A lot of good new features there for you. Anytime this happens, when there's a major update like this, folks, there are always some kinks to work out. And we're in that period right now here. So we're working out some kinks. Many of you have reached out to us to say, hey, this thing's not working for me, or something's happening here. We appreciate that so much. And I want to assure you, we are aware of all of these issues, and we are working tirelessly right now as we speak. Our website team, people who are much more skilled to do that stuff than I am, are working on it right now to resolve these as quickly as possible. One of the big issues that we know of, some of you have mentioned this in the chat as well. I know Nelson mentioned it earlier, and maybe Dave and Darlene too, that you're experiencing is that the broad and buy lists are not fully loading, and some holdings are missing as well. We're addressing this. That's priority number one for you folks. You can breathe a sigh of relief. We're hoping to fix that soon. In the meantime, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. Hopefully you're starting to get a little more familiar with the site as a whole. And one more thing for you, if you run into any issues at all, please don't hesitate to let us know. You can email Pat at financialissues.org. You can also, a great place to go is on the website. If you go to the homepage, there's a contact us button. I think it's in the top right-hand corner.
Yep, it is right on the top of the page.
Yeah,
it says awesome. Contact us. Best place to go. Just click that button, put in your question, put in what you're experiencing, and let us know. We want to know this, folks. We really appreciate it. So it's not annoying for you to ask us this and to let us know of these things. So please do that. And once again, you can also email Pat too at financialissues.org. Your feedback helps us, really helps us. And I'll say, Seth, they've been fixing these things very quickly.
Yeah,
just about as soon as there's a problem, a couple hours later, it will be fixed. I'm not going to guarantee it. That's the case every single time, but the turnaround with fixing these problems has been remarkable in my experience.
Yeah, very good. And if any of you have worked in IT before, you know this type of thing tends to happen. You roll out a new website, and there's always little things here or there that need to be addressed. So we're doing that for you right now. All right, folks, I appreciate you being with us here so much. Let's take a look here now at the markets here. So last week, the markets had a bit of a rough go. Inflation fears kind of continued to worsen. That was contributing to a pretty bad ending for the markets on Friday. So by Friday's closing bell, the Dow Jones finished down 1.7%. The S&P 500 was down almost 2 full percentage points, and the NASDAQ was creeping up towards 3 percentage points. It was down about 2 3/4 percentage points. Google, Meta, and Amazon, all companies, or some of them I know Dan mentioned in the clip there of not to invest in these companies because they're not biblically responsible. They all contributed to the market's rough finish to a tough week overall. Each of those big stocks, they were down between 4 and 5%. I saw, so pretty rough go for them. For the week ending March 28th, the Dow Jones was down almost a full percent. The S&P 500 was down 1.5%, and the NASDAQ down well over 2.5 percentage points. What to expect this week, folks? Not much today. Tuesday, tomorrow, we get JOLTS for February. Wednesday, not much. Thursday, we get ISM services. Friday, I guess, is the biggest day this week because we get non-farm payrolls for March, unemployment for March, and then Fed Chair Powell speaks right around midday. So we'll keep an eye on what he says there. I'm sure we'll be talking about that next Monday. More financial issues coming up right after this break here, folks. Phone lines are open, by the way. If you want to call in, you're welcome to do that. 610-363-1110. We'll be right back after this.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
If a woman sees her baby on ultrasound, it doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. On top of that, we share the gospel of Jesus Christ with her. This is why you should support preborn.
Then they sat me down. If you were to die today, do you think you would go to heaven? And I was like, no. Keeping the child was my first stepping stone. And ever since then, God has cleaned me up from the inside out.
Help support women in need. Go to preborn.com/FISM.
What separates Crossroads Kids Club from other ministries to reach school-age children? What sets you guys apart?
First of all is our connection with local churches. We mobilize, equip, train, support local church partners. We're right inside the schools. There's a number of ministries that try to serve public school children outside of the school, but we're able to be right there on the campus. Another key thing is just our values. Our highest value is actually relationships. And so we're not a ministry that's driven by a lot of fancy technology or flashy stuff, but rather getting adults who love Jesus and who love kids to sit on the floor with a group of kids, to listen to them, to love them. So I would say the relational emphasis and the simplicity of the model is actually something that makes Crossroads special as well.
Help reach kids with the hope of the gospel. Visit reachOurschools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Thanks for hanging with us here, folks. Financial Issues. We're honoring the legacy of our founder, Dan Celia, who's now been with the Lord in glory for 3 years. And I know we're all jealous of him and anxiously awaiting the day where we join him and, of course, the Lord and all the saints in glory. It's going to be a good day, folks. Moving to the markets here, as we looked at what they did last week, I forgot to tell you where they're at right now. So right now, all the markets are pretty negative. The Dow is down right around a full percentage point. The S&P 500 down 1.5%, and the NASDAQ is down 2.5%, actually pretty close to where they finished their weekly numbers, is actually where they're at right now. Oil is, let me see if I can find oil here, right around $70 a barrel, a little bit less, and the U.S. 10-year Treasury down around 4.2%. So that's what we have here for the markets, folks. Craig Halgard is coming on now to give us the updates, what we need to know in the ag world, and then we'll get to a question as well as your questions also here on Financial Issues. But let's hear from Craig Halgard with today's Ag Report.
This is Craig Howgard with your Financial Issues Ag update for March 31st. Well, corn saw some fun liquidation on Friday, but shook it off and closed higher. With the planted acres report coming out today, it appears as if traders already priced in a bearish surprise. Friday's close had May corn 3 1/4 cents higher at $4.53 1/4. Soybeans saw the funds continue to close out their net short position ahead of today's stocks and planted acres report. Looking at soybean prices for the next few weeks is going to be the planted acreage projections that are going to give direction to this market. If the acres come in below expectations, it can overcome doubts about demand and spur a rally. The one thing about the funds having a flat position going into this report is that they're less likely to panic about any particular number, and the build back of a position, either long or short, is probably going to be organized, even if it happens pretty rapidly. May beans finished the day 6 1/4 cents higher on Friday at $10.23 per bushel. Wheat traders look at a wetter forecast for the U.S. winter wheat belt in the Black Sea region and started selling on Friday. By the time the market closed, we'd established a new life of contract low in the May Chicago futures and matched the low in the May Kansas City futures. Minneapolis May wheat was 7 1/2 cents lower at $5.81. Kansas City declined by 14 1/2 cents, closing at $5.51 3/4. And Chicago was down 3 3/4 at $5.28 1/4. Cotton futures slipped on Friday as funds added to their short position. May was down 17 points at the close at 66.90. Livestock futures ended the week on a weaker note. June live cattle were 95 cents lower, $204.85 per hundredweight. May feeder cattle declined by $1.35 to close at $285.17 1/2 per hundred. And June lean hog futures were 40 cents lower, ending the week at $95.77 1/2 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures lost their momentum and slumped on Friday. The closing bell, May was down 16 points at 17.53. Well, this has been Craig Howgard with your Financial Issues Ag update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
There he is, Craig Howgard. Always appreciate Craig coming on here. I'm going to try to have him on the show live coming up sometime soon to give us sort of more of an update on what's going on with eggs and all the other things we need to keep an eye on, tariffs, different things like that that's happening here. But for right now, Sam, let's get to a good question we got from Brian. Brian, I believe, is a partner. What does Brian have to say?
Brian says, I'm 65 years old and am a partner for several years. I currently self-manage my wife and my accounts using Financial Issues Info and have done well. But it takes attention and commitment to stay engaged with the program and make changes when necessary, and this is just not my wife's thing. If I were to pass, what could she do to continue having our investments managed in a biblically responsible way? Suggestions on any managers, perhaps. I've found nothing in Oklahoma City. Again, this is Brian. He's 65 years old.
Thank you, Brian, and I wonder if this is one of our Brians from the chat. We've got several, I know, who listen on the show, so appreciate you listening, brother. Great question here, and I'll just say, first of all, well done. Your heart to think ahead and pass this along to your bride is the right thing to do. It's never a fun thought. I don't particularly enjoy thinking about the possibility of what would happen if I died prematurely. But you're thinking that way. You have to think that way. I remember, Sam, we're honoring Dan's legacy, and one of the things I remember Dan saying specifically about this topic exactly is what an act of love it can be for if you were to die prematurely, for you to already have these things in place so that your grieving loved ones who are already grieving your passing don't have to have just another headache to add on to it, that they have to figure out where all your stuff is going and who gets it. If you've got it already set for them, it's such an act of love.
Yeah, and Dan practiced what he preached with that, because he certainly did that after he passed, and it really was a blessing to both his family and the ministry.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, Brian, it's well done. And I am sympathetic towards you, brother. Actually, last night, Megan and I were working on updating our will, as we now have another newborn. So we got to add another name to that. It's not a fun thing to do. I don't enjoy it, but it's the right thing to do. It's absolutely right. If I were you, here's what I might consider doing, because you said that your wife might just not be really interested in it, or it might just not be her thing, and I get that. For some people, it's not their thing, and that's totally cool. Try this. Maybe offer to make a date out of it. Take your wife out to dinner, and maybe see, hey, I'd love to give you a tutorial on what I know about the FISM strategy and how you might use it. Just in case, I actually find that as a husband, I love teaching my wife things. I'm not always sure that she enjoys hearing me, but I love teaching her things for sure and getting to kind of show her things. And if she sees I'm passionate about it, number one, and number two, if she sees that I know a little bit about it, usually she's almost equally on board with me with it, and she loves to get to hear about it. So I might, tell you, hey, try that. See if maybe you wanted to sit down with your wife, make a little date out of it, and kind of give her that tutorial. Now, it might be where she's just like, thank you, honey, I love you, I married you, but I'm just not interested in it, and that's okay. She just might not be comfortable.
And I'm getting that a little bit from the question.
That's kind of what I'm getting to.
But I'm not sure 100%. But
yeah. So with this self-management idea, she just might feel better with a little more hand-holding, and that's fine. That's totally fine. So here's my suggestion there, if that's your option, Brian, would be reach out to Pat at financialissues.org. Ask for the information of our recommended financial advisor. We do have someone who we recommend. So reach out to Pat, financialissues.org. Ask for that information. Get in contact with this person. This person will be able to help you out greatly. They do biblically responsible investing as well. They manage clients who do biblically responsible investing. Explain the situation to them. You'll be in great hands. This person that we recommend works with clients across the country. So don't need to worry about being in Oklahoma City and nothing found there. It's all online. So of course you'd have to have access to be able to do video calls with them and different things like that. But as long as you can do that, doesn't matter if they're in your region or not. So you'll be in good hands there. Brian, that's a good question. I appreciate you thinking that way. And for all of us folks, it's a really good lesson. You've got to be thinking ahead. You have to be thinking ahead to what's going to happen when I die. We are going to die. Either Christ will come back or we will die. And so it's a sobering thought. The Lord has numbered our days. And so we have to think about who is going to take care of the people that I love most and what's going to happen with all of my stuff. And so it can be such an act of love for you to figure these things out now. Absolutely. Good question, Brian. Appreciate that. All right, Sam, let's move to at least one headline here. Interesting. So we talked about this during the Super Bowl, and now with another big sporting event here, the March Madness tournament, college basketball, apparently a lot of money is being betted on this. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, and just jumping off of Brian's question, why it's so important to be concerned about being biblically responsible, this is it right here, and I'll get to that in just a second, but you're right. $3.1 billion for this year's March Madness tournament is expected to be betted. That's according to the American Gambling Association. That's more than last year, and it's also double the amount they predicted for the Super Bowl, which is really incredible. But sadly, this sports betting is having devastating consequences, Seth. According to a study by the Kellogg School of Management, they found that the funds used for sports betting, quote, overwhelmingly come from the money that used to be spent on more stable, long-term investments like retirement accounts. In fact, they found that households involved in gambling saw their investments fall by a whopping 14%, Seth.
That's not good.
It's not so good.
It's not a good thing to do, folks. This is so simple here. If you have a choice between stewarding your money well and putting it away for retirement and saving it well and being generous, or gambling, the option is pretty clear there, folks. Absolutely.
And Seth, it's exponential. So the research shows that for every $1 a household spent on betting, it put $2 fewer dollars into their investment accounts.
Yeah, that is just sad stuff there, folks. That's part of the reason why we screen out this particular vice here, this gambling vice. So often it can be so unwise. It can be so unwise. And of course, there's a lot of arguments out there about, is gambling truly sinful or not? This, that, or the other thing. Regardless of that, we can all agree it's unwise. There are far better ways to spend your money here. And, I think that's really kind of the lesson from this. Really good there, Sam. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
And if you're investing in a company that profits from gambling, you're investing in, you're actually gaining from people's poor financial decisions and an industry that kind of preys upon that too. So that's just no good. You want nothing to do with it. And sadly, I see many investment sites around this time of year listing, here are the top 5 gambling companies you can invest in. And we at Financial Issues, we as Christians want nothing to do with that.
Absolutely. Nothing to do with it at all. It's good stuff, man. Well, folks, it's been a great show. It's been wonderful to be back with you all. And I want to close our show the way that Shanna opened it. 1 Corinthians 15:58, Dan's life verse. Just a reminder what it says. My beloved brothers, Paul says, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain. Folks, I don't think it's a surprise that Paul put this verse after his great treatise on the resurrection. that Christ Jesus died for our sins according to the scriptures. He was buried and he was raised to life. It's a beautiful gospel presentation focusing on the resurrection of Christ. And this is how he ends it. Because we live in the reality that our Lord Jesus rose from the dead and we have that hope for us as well, we can be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. That's my encouragement for you today. God bless you all. Great to be here with you. Lord willing, we'll do it again tomorrow. Until then, remember, it's all his. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with what God has given to us. God willing, we'll see you next time for more Financial Issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation going under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.